Welcome to The Foundry, where leaders are forged daily. Each week we investigate themes of leadership, entrepreneurship, and mindset with some of the greatest minds in real estate. And now, the data scientist of real estate, George Roberts.
All right, welcome back, entrepreneurs. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing the one and only Chris Prefontaine, author of multiple best-selling books, founder of the 𝐂𝐚𝐢𝐬 community. Did I say that right?
You did.
All right, we're off to a great start, and one of the most successful coaches in the real estate industry. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks, George. Thanks for having me, buddy. I hope we can impart some nuggets as we chat.
You know, I'm sure we will. And I usually avoid the question of how did you get your start in real estate, because I don't want to bore people. But in your case, the question is fascinating because of what you learned along the way and what you've shared in your books. So I know you've been an investor that's been in the business for over 30 years. So you started your real estate career in the 1990-91 recession, but it was the GFC, the global financial crisis, that was the real impetus for your current approach to investing. So I'd love it if you could tell our audience the lessons you learned from the global financial crisis and how that changed your approach to real estate investing.
Yeah. One main thing, and as always, when I give answers, you peel it back deeper if you want, but the main thing, there's two. Main thing is from a financial standpoint, I learned the hard way real fast what a lot of investors do when they go out and they sign personally on loans because they have good credit. I had good credit. I signed on loans. I thought that's what you do, or brought some money in from investors. Well, when the crash happened, some projects, as everybody knows, went down by 20%, 30%. I had one project in Rhode Island that went down by 2/3. It was a condominium conversion project. And to give you some math, we were selling units like hotcakes in a 6-unit conversion at $172 a pop. Like we sold two like it was nothing before you could even get them done. Soon as the climate changed, it was February of 2008. I remember like it was yesterday. It's like a switch went off and we could not give them away for 55 grand. That's a big drop. And so all that to say, the banks do what when that happens? They come looking for the guarantors. So I just decided after 4 years of trying to get out of my own way and get out of my head mentally from the crash in 2008, by 12, I said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this smart, and we're not going to do bank loans. We're not going to sign personally ever again. So when my head hits the pillow now, we control whatever it is, 80, 100 million at any one time with the students and ourselves in real estate. There's no loans we're on, none, zero. And it's a big difference. So we buy everything, owner financing, subject to existing, and lease purchase. That's it. And I would say that if you're out there and you have a personal residence you want to get, and it's a particular neighborhood, and you have to be there. Okay, there's an exception to no bank signing, but try to keep LTV low. But other than that, I get it. You should not be having to do that ever again. That was the biggest lesson, George, biggest lesson. But it's a painful one. But I don't regret it now that in hindsight, because it offered us all we're doing now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of our listeners, they're in multifamily. If you're not doing those really big deals, you have that recourse debt, and it's really scary. So hope that imparts a big lesson that you don't really have to go what I would call the ordinary progression, where you buy a 1 and then you get a duplex and a quad and then you get a 10 units. There's really other ways. So the worst case scenario for you now, if all your deals went south, you'd be totally okay, right?
I'm not gonna say there'd be no headaches, right? But the bank is in my opinion, as you can tell, I'm not trying to step on bankers' toes if they're listening, but I just have no desire to do business with them because they have a job to do and it's not their fault.
Right.
But yeah, I just would rather not do that. And I'm hearing now, George, especially now, even multis. I heard last week of a big multi where the owner was seeking to do a deal sub 2 with someone, and he had an interest rate of like 3.2%, and he was just retiring. Like there are some phenomenal deals in the apartment, in the singles, everywhere, every asset class with old interest rates, meaning two years ago, great interest rates that you can gobble up. You don't have to be on the loan. You buy it subject to the existing loan.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. And so I want to, syndicators, listen up here. So you don't have any outside investor money in your deals because of the way you structure them. So if you do experience some sort of a catastrophe, and obviously 2008, that went far beyond anything that had anything to do with you or I, right?
Right.
That was the total climate. I mean, your reputation is solid too. So that's another advantage to your methods, as opposed to going out there and then using other people's money.
Yeah, it's just, here's what I hear in the community. Like for some people, the personality, like for the syndicators out there, the personality is, I like doing that. Okay, it's great. There are others that find us through different podcasts, whatever. They say, you know what, I'm not comfortable doing it. And so it's just personality, to be honest with you. And after the crash, I didn't want to go do it. It doesn't mean it's not it's not a great thing. There's a different niche, as you know, there's a lot of great niches in the biz. And so if it doesn't fit you, then you know you have a way to go, a path, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And I often do these hot takes on fake gurus on the show, no names, of course, but people who promise the goods and don't deliver. And you know what I'm talking about, the people who make it sound like it's really easy to do deals with no money down.
Couldn't
You should
agree
do your
more.
first deal in no time. But what is it about you as a coach and a mentor that allows you to embrace expounding the hurdles to your students?
Yeah, this is huge. I'm so glad you brought it up, because you and I both know, I'm going to hit a few things here with that question. You and I both know a whole bunch of people in different niches that can market real well, like they're good marketers. And as a result, there's no kind of behind the scenes follow up and get these people getting deals done. I get calls weekly. Yeah, still, I was going to back that off to monthly, but still weekly, where people say, hey, Chris, I saw your stuff. I wish I met you earlier. I've spent X on programs and haven't done any deals. And X is pretty high sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think I just say to people, listen, you do your due diligence. We have a lot of free stuff. You and I are going to give a book away here for free. I mean, a hard copy book. I'm big on free because I want people to go, okay, I did a bunch of research. I didn't spend any money. I don't like that niche, or I do like that niche. Either way is great, but you research most of it for free. And then secondly, to answer your question, we do deals with our students, George. We have one, like our purpose, our mission, our values is all built around deals, not selling a product. How many deals can we get the students doing? How much time can we cut off of we call it TTFD, time to first deal? How tight can we get that? We're down to like 153 days. And that averages, the people that take a year and the people that do it really quickly.
Sure.
So that's what we obsess over, not can I go sell 10 units of XYZ product? I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it answers the question perfectly. And one of the things that I get from reading your book, so here, let me just hold it up. So I would
Thank you.
recommend it.
That's
Great
cool.
book, Real Estate on Your Terms. Something I've actually read a couple of times already. When you actually, let me take a step back. What would you say is the biggest mistake that people are making with these lease purchase deals?
Specifically lease purchase, and I can address the
Yeah.
industry too, but specifically lease purchase, there are a bunch of things we learn the hard way. I say it's my son-in-law and my son, and then we coach students as well. So we have a lot of things coming at us for microcosm of society, so to speak, in our community. Lease purchase from no particular order. One would be on the seller side, not drilling down, asking enough questions. In other words, wanting to get a deal versus drilling down, getting enough answers, getting to know what their challenge, problem, goal is, so we can solve for that instead of trying to just buy a deal. And on the buyer side, I can tell you the biggest headache, and it's a big one, is jamming buyers in there, because we do a lot of rent to owns when we're talking singles, jamming buyers in there that aren't buyers. And there's going to be a high default rate. If you listen to other shows, radio or podcasts, there are mentors in my space that openly will tell you their success rate on the exiting that way is about 20%. That's awful.
Yeah.
That means 80% of the buyers were set up to fail. Our failure rate's about, our default rate is like 2 to 10. I used to say 2 to 5, but 2 to 10% on a rotten year, because my son Nick, and then he trains others, is real stickler on, we're only putting buyers in the house. We're not putting renters that have some dream to buy and they've been a mess for 30 years. And there's nothing against renting. I'm just saying we're looking for buyers that out of COVID are starting their own business, or they're changing careers or change jobs. They're high income earners, but they're not financeable yet. So those are two big mistakes on both ends of the spectrum that have stung us and that we've fixed. I mean, we've been doing this a lot of years now, but those are biggies because they'll cost you a deal and maybe flush you out of the business.
Exactly. Let me add one on to that. From what I've learned, and this is just outside the biz, I've never done one of these lease purchases, but I hear about people, they're not doing it legally. And it is a difficult contract. And if you try and go out there and play lawyer, so that's what I was trying to tie together there, is that, you mentioned these pitfalls and the difficulties in doing the deals. So if I was going to go out and do a lease purchase, I don't want to go out and pay lawyer, or play lawyer. I don't want to go out and pay my own and start from scratch. But if you join your community, you actually get all those forms and things like that. And that's what I like. I mean, you're really, I think, drawing people in the right way. You're saying, hey, this is the process. It isn't easy, but I've got some products that'll help you get over the speed bumps so that you don't just go out there with the wrong kind of contract and then, find out that you're halfway through the deal and that it's a no-go.
Yeah, just this is big that you bring this up, and a lot of people don't bring up the contract issue. So I'm glad you did, because we've got, oh gosh, this is what we finally found, a title company and an attorney that can operate in 32 states with us. And that took some doing. Like, it was frustrating. You're a new student in an XYZ market, you call me and go, hey, can you talk to my attorney? Because that's what we do. We get in the trenches. And then I hear an attorney with no experience trying to tell me how to do it. It was very frustrating. So now with the forms all in our materials in the academy and the attorneys in place, now for most people in most states, it's almost plug and play as long as they follow the rules, right? I mean, they can sway off. So yeah, it's super, super important. And I think where the community comes in, to your point, like we've got a Slack community, right? That's where we all live.
Mhm.
And so you'll have a deal and you'll say, hey, I get this challenge, or can someone look at this agreement? There's 140 people in there. And so people just jump on it and help you. And that's where I think people miss the boat with coaching. They say, well, I don't need coaching, I can figure it out. Okay, you're either going to leave a lot of money on the table, or you could possibly lose money. Neither one of those are great scenarios. And when you're talking, let me put some math to this. And this is a long answer, sorry. The math on this, the metric on this, our 3 payday system that we trademarked, average around the country ranges a low of 45 grand, all 3 paydays for a deal. And as high as 250. We're working on right now, that's like 280 grand. So you're not talking small numbers. So when you and I say there's challenges and there's pitfall, yep, but there's also an enormous return. And once you learn the skill set, no one's going to take it from you. You know how to do that. You know how to go buy a house for your family on terms. That's a valuable skill set, whether we ever talk again. So it's important to know that. Now you put that wealth creation in place.
Right. Well, I love that. Just one more point on that I want to hit, and I definitely want to talk about the coaching and the 3 paydays. But I recently read Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins,
I love
and
it.
I just love his take on visualization. So I want to get your reaction to his approach on visualization. So for him, he doesn't just visualize the victory lap and the champagne. He makes a point of visualizing each potential roadblock and his contingency plan.
I love it. Okay, first of all, I love both his books. I just finished the second one as well. Visualization to me, and some people are gonna go, wow, that's fluffy or foo-foo. I'm gonna tie this to your other question about the crash, because the other big lesson I learned was the importance of the mental side of this game. And the visualization is one of many, but it's super, super important, because it's like going to, and I used to do this with golf, and I haven't golfed since pre-COVID, but it'd be similar to golf, because he visualizes the solutions to some of the challenges. I go hold the hole, like a lot of professionals tell you to do, and work through how you're going to do that. It's super, super powerful. And I challenge you, if you haven't done it, to do it for 6 to 12 months, not days, 6 to 12 months, and see what starts to formulate and materialize in your life and in your business. It's super, super important.
Yeah, love that. And let's see if we can move on here. Okay, yeah, you did mention the 3 paydays. We'll talk about coaching later, but tell us exactly, what are the 3 paydays that you trademarked?
Yeah, here's what they have. And first, here's why. When I came out of the crash, George, I thought, okay, among other things that I already talked about, I don't want to be on a transactional basis anymore. Like, I didn't want to go, I've been a broker, I've been a builder. I didn't want to go do a deal and get a check, even though they're good checks, right? In a lot of niches. I wanted to be able to get the check, sure, but I also wanted to get some longevity, cash flow, and I wanted to get some long-term wealth building. So the 3 paydays are simple. Let's say, I'll explain the avatar too. When we exit let's say it's $1 million property we just did here along the water, the people looking at that home for rent to own were who? They were high earning corporate people that either left corporate or changed jobs, left to start their own business or changed jobs. And so they came to the table with 10 or 20% down. Payday 1 is you have a true buyer that wants to put a down payment down. It's non-refundable. They're committing to buying that property. They just can't get a loan yet. Payday 2 is the spread between what I'm paying on that particular house. It was owner financing. We were paying the owner, who happened to be a realtor, who couldn't sell it. We were paying her $2,500 a month, principal only payments. And we were collecting 35 or 36, whatever the number was. We've since exited. That's payday 2. It's a delta. Now, that was a big house, so it was a bigger delta. Payday 3 is really cool. Payday 3 is the increase in price. We bought that for $945. We put it on for $1,250. And all of the principal pay down throughout the term of that deal. We're paying her 30 grand a year in principal only, covered by the buyer monthly. And that comes off at the end as well. So payday 1, 2, and 3, the numbers I gave earlier for of what people are earning around the country, that's how that happens. Down payment, monthly spread, long-term cash out, long or short-term cash out.
Yeah, that's outstanding. And if you're up to it, I think we could actually put some numbers in a spreadsheet. I got a practice spreadsheet if you want to. I'd love to go through some. Now, you mentioned there's 3 ways to buy in terms. So you talk about seller financing, subject to, and lease purchase. And let's go through a scenario. Actually, before we do that, here, I'll show off the swag. So I want to thank you for the shirt.
That's
Love
awesome.
this.
Good deal.
I'm an official member of your community, but
Love it.
really respect what you're doing. And before we dive into it, I just want to say, they say that a smart man learns from his own mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. And you can only expose yourself to so many deals personally, right? So
Right.
then if you want to get smarter, the only thing you can do, you either got to become a coach, which is a great way to go. And I do a lot of that myself. I do a lot of mentoring, or you got to go start reading books like this. So you got your deal structure over time. You've got 8 deals in here that, I mean, you can get really smart in one evening learning about 8 deals. You're not going to do 8 deals in any evening. I don't care how successful you
Right.
are. So let's say you have like an email blast or postcard blast. You find a seller who lost their job 6 months ago, has some equity in the home, but's under the gun because they're about to suffer foreclosure.
Yep.
So what might you do in that situation?
With that exact scenario you painted, if they're under the gun, quote unquote, that you said in the foreclosure is close, they're probably going to need to move quickly and do a sub 2. And I say that because if they weren't under the gun, protecting their equity and doing a lease purchase would probably be fine, but it sounds like they have to move quickly. Secondly, if they got to move quickly, I usually don't take on a property. My students certainly don't, but more advanced you can. I tell the students, don't take on a property unless you make it contingent upon finding your buyer. Give yourself 90 days to do that. Now that seller there is going to need to fix that headache right away. So we may commit to that right away. And as a result, they're not going to get much, if any, equity. Again, we're playing with rough numbers here because you got to move quickly and you got to stop paying that payment whether you have a buyer or not. We just did the exact scenario that you said. We had a divorced couple call us from 𝐂𝐸𝐿. It's a resort community here, not too far. And they rehabbed it, maybe watched the HGTV special, spent credit cards, ran up debt, then got a divorce. And when they called us, they were 4,100 in arrears. So we had to make up the arrears, find a buyer quickly, which we did for like a 41 grand payday 1. But we had to float that for a month or so. It was only 4,100 bucks, but still you had to come out of pocket for that. But they got no equity out of it. They just wanted out and they were ecstatic to be out because they needed that headache solved, similar to your scenario.
Yeah, outstanding. And that all comes from what you said earlier. Biggest mistake the early investors are making, they're not asking enough questions. So you really got deep there. You figured out exactly what their problem is. How far are they in arrears? What do you need to do? And you got them out of that. So that's great. What if we try a second scenario? What if you have a seller that has a unique home? It's got a reasonable asking price, but maybe just didn't get a whole lot of bites on the market. Realtor just didn't get the job done. Seller owns the home free and clear. You can get that asking price and a little bit of a premium. You want that payday number 1. So what do you do?
Free and clear we love. I'll tell you why. 99% of the free and clear properties, and I'm standing in my building, George, right now, commercial building, mixed use, that I bought this way that I'm about to explain. And so you can do it with the singles, anything, doesn't matter. We structure principal only payments, like I said about the oceanfront home down the Cape. And so I don't care about price. Why do I not care? Let's say that the property price, I don't think you gave me a price. Let's say it's $500,000. Well, if they didn't get on the open market, my first question to them is, what were you going to get if you were on with a realtor? What were you going to net on that property if it sold full price? It didn't, but what were you going to net? And they'd probably say, what, if it's a commission of 25 grand, they'd probably say 570. All right, 470 rather. All right, I'll give you 470. I'll pay your price that you would have got. You didn't get it. I'll pay it. I'll pay you monthly principal payments of $1,500 a month. And if he or she gives me a term of at least 4 years or more, that's a huge win. I don't care if I even have to put a premium and say, I'll give you 5 grand higher because I'm paying down that principal $1,500 a month and my buyer is covering that. So I'll give you the metrics on these owner financing deals. When you find a property, doesn't matter what asset class, 200 grand and up. So that's most people can find a property for 200 grand and up. That's low. And you structure at least a 4-year term, 48 months, and you structure principal only payments of $1,000 or more a month. You have a 6-figure deal, all 3 paydays, every time. I'm not saying you can find 3 of these a month, don't get me wrong, but I am saying you can find a handful of these a year and you'd be set up pretty nicely for the next 3 to 5 years, for sure.
Yeah, no, you used a phrase that I just love a few times in that answer. You said principal only payments. I noticed you didn't say, give me a zero interest loan. So do you have any other tricks for how to talk to the sellers, how to get them? I mean, obviously you're saying something like, hey, I give you your price, but look, I got to pay you over time.
Yeah, the script is like this. Like I literally was making some calls this morning for students. We help the students. And the calls sound, all of them sound the same. It doesn't matter what source you're calling for, sale by owner, expired listing, free and clear, doesn't matter. If I was to get you your price, I haven't seen your home yet, but if I was to get you your price, are you open to owner financing or lease purchase? Yes or no? A lot of people say no at the outset because they think if they're for sale by owner, especially George, as you know, they think what? They think they can sell or they wouldn't be on the market like that. So sometimes they need time to realize that. Over time, real estate helps us. All I care about is, do you need the cash in this property, if you have any equity, to go to your next property or plan? Do you absolutely need it? Or could you do something else? Or could you wait? If they absolutely need it, we're not the buyer. But if they absolutely need it or think they need it, but their motivation is, I got to be out of state for a new job in 3 months, I'm calling back because they don't absolutely need it. They're going to have to do something else for plan B. So if they don't need the cash, or we can find out in time they don't, we're going to have a good conversation. Because all we're doing here is what? People say, how'd you convince the building owner where I am here? How'd you convince them to sell with no bank? Because you have to solve for what they're not accomplishing in the open market in your scenario, or the headache that you gave earlier, you're fixing something. So you're either helping accomplish a goal or you're fixing a headache. If you can solve for those, you have a deal. And if you can't, it's okay, walk away. And you just gotta be open with the sellers and have a nice dialogue. That makes sense?
Absolutely. And I want to say one of the things that I love about your system, I know that you've mentioned that you've changed it over the time, but great investors do change their system. Warren Buffett, he learned from Benjamin Graham. He found these cigar butt stocks, things that were, a net nets. In other words, if you could just liquidate the company, that you win, right? But he didn't see that later in time. He had to go and buy great companies at a good price. So I know you changed your 3 payday system a lot over time. You quoted your current paydays. I want to say that you said it was something like between 46,000 and 250,000, adding them all up. But that's progressed over time. So how did you learn that it was really possible to do a whole lot better with this system?
Yeah, that's funny because I think back, I think our payday ones, we found some old reports, my son and son-in-law and I the other day, and it said our payday ones were like 10,200. I think the first year I was doing them. Now they're upwards of like 27 grand. There's been tweaks along the way. I'll name a few. One is my family did come in, and Nick, my son, got really, really, really smart with how to help the buyers get to a point where they're more down, which puts them in a better looking glass for the bank, but also helps us with a better payday one. We've gotten better with things like when we take over a property, we might put a buyer in there, say July 1, but we're not going to start paying payments till August 1. So we pick up an extra month there. There are all these little nuances that were picked up after doing hundreds of these deals. And frankly, a lot of them come from the students because, again, the community is so big and they control a lot of real estate, and that you constantly increase the paydays. Now, I will say over the last like 3 years, it seems like our family anyway, because they range, we're in the lower range. We're on 75 grand. We're hovering between 75 and 78 on these deals on our end. So I'm looking for more ways to increase the 3 paydays, but they're rock solid now.
Yeah, outstanding. And I just love that. Yeah, you're always tweaking the system.
Yeah.
And I guess we'll get a little deeper because this really sort of dovetails with your coaching. So tell us why you, as a top performing coach, make a point of still having a coach yourself.
Yeah, well, here's a good example. I just got off the phone before you. I had an hour session with, I have different coaches, but I have an hour session with Dr. Amanda, who's a mindset coach. She works with a lot of our students. I rehired her after 2 years. I said, okay, I need kind of some more work there. In my opinion, here's why I think everybody should, and here's what I do. If you're not progressively learning, because things are moving so fast now in real estate in particular, right, with technology and all these things you can do now, yeah, I think if you're going backwards. And so the only way to do that is there's zero reason to recreate the wheel. The success leaves clues, as they say. And I don't think there's any reason not to take an area of your life, whether it's physically working out, whether it's, in my case, I had a mindset session for an hour, or whether it's real estate, or that's all the above. Sometimes it's all the above for someone. I think you're crazy not to take full advantage of it, because they've spent decades, in some cases, in my case, 3 decades, learning. And why not tap into that? Why go out and try to recreate the wheel? I had a guy, here's a quick example. I had a guy on my show, David Nurse. David works with, and he's wrote some great books. David works with one-on-one with high earners, like 10, $20 million NBA players. And he said to me on the show publicly, he said, Chris, here's what we do. If I'm coaching George and George has a problem with one item in his life, it could be mindset, could be the jump shot, doesn't matter. It could be something that he said, I go online, I find the person who had that and solved it. Now, of course, I'm shortening the story. He said, and then we model our training, our one-on-one after that. Okay, so here's a guy working with NBA players. That's what he does. So why don't we all do that? Why don't we just find someone? The internet's so easy now, that has gone through what we've gone through and has come out the other side successfully, and go model and go coach with them, go talk to them, do something so you can progress yourself.
Yeah, outstanding. So yeah, leaders are learners, and yeah, coaches do have coaches. That's something I've observed. But yeah, when I watched your Smart Real Estate podcast, I highly recommend it, by the way. I saw the Ed Rush episode, and you talk about how you have Ed at your events. You purchased over $18,000 of coaching and resources from him. So I think that's really a very strong endorsement of the idea that somebody who's, a top coach is going out, and you're not just, this a few sessions with somebody. This is major.
Yeah, and you know how I found him and how I find most coaches, and this is a good thing for the listeners to hear. If I read a good book that I like, or in Ed's case, I went to an event. I was at a Dan Kennedy event, and he was the MC, and he told some really cool stories, did some really cool things. And I looked him up after and said, would you work with me? And then he ended up working with the kids, and then he ended up working with the students. So my point is, if you read a good book or you see a great podcast and that hit a button with you, struck a chord with you, reach out to people. They are flattered when you reach out, and they probably, whether they're a coach or not, they'll at least talk with you, and you can get a nugget out of a conversation that could change your life. It's not difficult to hook up with these people. How do we meet David Nurse? Same way. How do we meet Ed Milet? Same way. So all you do is reach out.
Love it. And so extend that a little further. So what do you look for in a coach? How does that initial call sound?
Okay, I'll go with the first part first. So who do I look for? What do I look for in a coach? It's whatever area, like we're in July as of the time you and I are talking, whenever this airs. And I look at what am I looking to accomplish in the next 6 to 12 months that I see a bottleneck with. And then I'll go look for that in a coach. But at the same time, before I get to the conversation, I want to look for what? I want to look for longevity, because frankly, and it's nothing against new people in the biz, and I'm talking not just real estate, any coaching business. I want someone that's gone through at least a cycle or two in life, like economically, not just real estate. And I want someone that I can align with value-wise. Let me give you a facetious example, but it happens. I met a gentleman recently who his son sadly passed away from a drug overdose. He's divorced. That's someone that built a monster business, but wrecked his life, in my opinion. So that's not someone that I want to model after. Me personally, everybody has their own. So twofold: find someone that's where you want to be, and find someone who's been at it long enough so when you hit curveballs, you can call them and go, hey, George, how'd you deal with this? I just went through this. That's important, in my opinion. Now, the conversation's simple. If you're cold calling someone or you're emailing them from their book or whatever, hey, George, just read your book, or hey, George, just heard you in a podcast, really impressed, love to chat with you for a few minutes. Not, I'd love to pick your brain. Nobody wants to get their brain picked, but I'd love to chat with you for a few minutes. If they're hosting events, go meet them. Go walk up and say that you read their book and you love what they're doing. Get around that environment, because who you're around really does matter.
Yeah. And any red flags that you would look out for? And I think you pretty much answered that, right? If somebody has, bad life events, that sort of thing, that's probably what you would try to get away from.
Well, I want them. I don't want to want this for anyone, but I want to know that someone has been through maybe some life events, but not the other thing I said, wreck their life over I'm business driven and I'm going to do it at all costs. That to me doesn't fit, but for some people it might.
Okay. And then one of the things that I notice in real estate, a lot of people, they go through these big programs, they kind of start out copying, which is not bad, but you also have to stand out. And obviously you and your program, you do stand out. What can you tell people about personal branding?
The most recent book we did, the bestseller, was exactly that: Sell with Authority for real estate investors. And so things like, on social media, I'm not big on technology and social media, but we do have our YouTube and, the basic things that are important. I think writing a book or even an ebook does set you aside as the authority. Again, I don't care what niche you're in, and don't think that's a daunting task, because I was in a special reading class going through school, and if you told my teacher I was going to write a book, they probably would have laughed. So you can do it. You just have to say, okay, this is going to be sort of my next project to do. Find someone who can teach you how to do it, like we just talked about. That's a major authority piece. So you're an investor, and this particular building owner or homeowner is getting calls from all the investors, but you sent him a book, or you sent him an ebook, or you sent him a link to your YouTube station, or you sent him a link to your podcast. Any one of those are authority statements that's going to put you aside, set you aside. But the book will hit a bunch of those items too.
Right, outstanding. Well, look, I would love to just interview for another hour or so. Wish we could do 2 episodes, but I'll tell you what, I think we probably have to head into our rapid fire round. So, Chris,
Awesome.
how you feeling? You ready?
Awesome.
All right, let's do it. Okay, if you could be known for only one thing, what would that be?
Giving people hope and confidence to create the lifestyle of their dreams. Too many people stay in a rut.
What's the greatest lesson in leadership you've learned as an entrepreneur?
People drive revenues. People will drag revenues, not drive. So you get the right people in the right seat in your company, and you will drag revenues along. And the opposite is also true.
Personal characteristic has been most pivotal to your success?
I'd have to say discipline, because I used to tell my kids when they were real little, if you're disciplined, I don't care what you're doing, you can be successful. And I use the facetious example: if you can go open up a popcorn stand on the side of the road, if you're disciplined, you will have success.
Love it. All right, let's take a nod to the randomness in the universe. I got some random question cards. Just let me know when to stop cutting the deck.
You're good right there.
All right. Is it more essential to develop beliefs or to gain knowledge?
Develop beliefs or gain knowledge? Without any pre-thought, the way you, because I love your question, I'm going to say develop beliefs, because then you can go out and gain any knowledge. That's just my gut.
Love it. So it's the mindset first. Can you name a book that's helped to forge you as a leader or as an entrepreneur, and why?
The McDonald's one that they came out with a movie that, that they had a movie in the book. I think it was Behind the Gold Notches or whatever it was. That story is a phenomenal entrepreneurial story and real estate story, right? It's both. And then Ray Dalio's Principles, I think, should be read by everyone.
Can you describe a failure or misstep in your business and what it taught you?
I'd have to go back to the crash, George, not to be redundant, because it was the most pivotal, and we already talked about it. Why?
Perfect. Okay, can you send us out with a quote to help forge our listeners as leaders and entrepreneurs?
I'm going to butcher it, and I should memorize it because I use it on shows, but I think it's the Ben Franklin one, but it's the persistence quote. Persistence trumps education, skills, everything. And I'm not going to remember the quote, but it's the persistent one. You can Google it.
Right, awesome. One final, just want to make sure that our listeners can reach out to you. What's the best way to contact Chris Prefontaine?
They can go to smartrealestatecoach.com, and I'm big on free. I said at the beginning of the show. So we've got a link here. I'll give it. It's specifically for your tribe. It's wickedsmartbooks.com/George, just so I know it came from your tribe. Now, here's the thing. It's not put your credit card in for shipping and then we'll ship a book. We're going to ship you a hard copy book. It's free. We're going to probably put some other goodies in there, and that'll let you do some due diligence on your own. And then if you don't mind listening to my New England accent for another hour, you can go do my free class. Just go to smartrealestatecoach.com/masters class.
All right, awesome. And thank you so much, Chris, for coming on our show and sharing your knowledge and experience with our audience.
You bet. It was a pleasure. Thanks for having me.